Good night, everyone, and welcome to Dialogue with the Diaspora. I am your host, Diane Haylock. For the most part, when we hear diaspora, we think of the countries where most Belizeans migrated to, such as the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Well, tonight we will take you off the beaten path and speak to Belizeans who have settled in or are working in some unlikely places. We start off tonight by journeying down under virtually to catch up with a Belizean who has made Australia his home. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show Alexander Ogay. Hello, Alexander. While it is evening here in Belize, I know it is morning where you are. So thank you for making time in your schedule to chat with us this morning. I want to jump right in and ask you about your Belizean roots. That's really important to our guests. So tell us a bit about your family, life in Belize, and when you left Belize.
My mother's name is Belder Agay, and my father's name is Bernard Agay. I grew up with my mother and my granddad, Henry Ferida, and I consider Henry Ferida and my older brother Bernard Jr. as my dad, because they were the one that was there for me. So I grew up in Caribbean shores, and people call it in Belize Hanga, near the municipal airport. And I had a good life in Belize, was really nice, but I had this yearning to go around the world and see the world, parts of the world that I always dreamt to see. So at 18, when I got legal age and my mom allowed me finally to leave, at 18 years old, I packed up and I flew off to India. And I lived in India and Asia, so mainly India, Nepal, Malaysia, Singapore, and China. I used to circle around them, but mainly stayed in India and studied for 10 years.
What motivated you to go to India and the other countries that you mentioned? Why India?
From I was young, I just I had a natural affinity towards Eastern culture, especially India and China, and the language, the culture, the history, the religions. I just had a keen interest in those since I was 10 years old, and I started to learn martial arts. So I just really have this affinity towards. It's hard to explain. I love Belize and everything, but when I was younger, I always felt that I didn't belong. The way how I thought, the type of food that I like was all Eastern culture. So I just had that burning desire to go to the East.
So you stayed in India initially for how long?
I arrived in 1993, and I finished and came and settled here in 2002, I believe, and.
Yeah, but what were you doing in India? I mean, you settled there, you completed what you were doing, but I'm not quite sure what it was you were doing.
I had this, I know it might sound strange, but I had this dilemma where constantly my mind was asking, what am I doing here? What's the purpose of life, where we go after we die. So I had an acute thing, and I felt I wasn't getting the answers that I needed, and it was just that simple answer. I just wanted to know the mind, the world, why we are here. So I went to India, and I entered a monastery, and I was a monk for that time. I lived as a monk.
For how long were you there?
Whole of Asia, but mainly India.
No, but India in particular.
India, yeah, India, 10 years. I spent most of the time in India, and I would just go out and teach in the other countries for a month or a few weeks or like that. But most of the time was in India. But when they had the monsoons and the floods, I would use that opportunity to go, and then I would have to maintain temple programs, teach new monks and stuff in other temples around Asia. So I used to travel around and then come back when the floods would go.
So, having gone into a monastery, you started a process then to become a monk, if I understand you correctly then? Yes? And
Yes.
you did that over a 10-year period.
Yes. So the culture is called Vedic culture, and it's very unique. It's the oldest known culture and universities and center of learning in the world is a Gurukula system. So in Vedic culture, society is broken up. So between the age of 3 years old and 24 years old, um, most people, males, would enter, if they choose, enter a monastery, and then when you're studying there, you learn secular things. So you do two secular degrees and then do an ecclesiastical degree at the same time. So by the time you're 24 and you graduate, you have three degrees. So I have an equivalent to master's in Vedic philosophy, and then now I have the therapies that I'm working right now. So it depends. Some of my fellow students, they're full monks. They're living as hermits. They're head of temples, and they'll be like that to the day they die. But for me, at age 24, you choose to enter grihastha or married life, and then it continues in segments like that. You have retired life, it's called vanapras, and then when you become a sannyas, like some of my friends and my teacher, they renounce society fully. But for me, it was mainly the quietude to study and focus on refining my body because I had some illnesses, and refining my mind, learn skills to live in life. And then when I reached the age of 24, I was ready to enter married life. So they prepare you properly for married life actually. And so yeah, so that's what I did.
So you chose the path to get married.
Yes.
How did that experience, being in the monastery, impact your life, Alex?
When I was younger, I had a temper and not much, I not much control, you know. So, and one thing with the monastic life is I had all my possessions in one bag that I would put over my shoulder, and that's everything I own in the world. I had a lot of knowledge. I was rich mentally, but physically, you're very poor, and it humbles you. And someone with my type of temperament, I needed that type of humility. And yeah, humble you, make you. We did services for society. Your whole 24 hours of your time is to provide for society. And depending on your training, I had some godbrothers. They're engineers, so they design buildings, not only temples, other buildings. So they build buildings for the poor. Me, I was more help, and so I would deal with the farmers with the injuries and stuff they had. So within Vedic culture, you have all the arts. You have um, city design, medicine, psychology, all the professions, and you specialize in one of them, and you start to work and provide to society. That's why these countries, that's why these governments and societies, they maintain temples. It's a source of strength for the society. And so we went around during floods. We educated, teach people how to read and write. So I learned Bengali mainly and Sanskrit, and those helped me to understand the other Indian languages. So I would teach this. Sanskrit is the oldest language in the world and the only scientific
So you're
language.
fluent in Sanskrit?
To be fluent in spoken Sanskrit, wow, it has 2,883 grammatical rules, and you have to know those perfectly to speak it properly. But I could read any book that I want, I could translate and like that. So in India, a lot of people are learning English, they're not learning their culture. So we do a lot of translations. I don't do much now, but we do a lot of translations, so the texts they are available in English, so people could have access to them. And that's all through Asia, a lot of governments and even the UN. The monastery that I studied is a World Heritage also declared by the UN as well. So a lot of these things are India is getting a revival. So
what is the name of that monastery?
Is the Rupa Nugya Vidyapitam. And so that is so old that you have on some of the rooms you have on the top, it's called Nalanda, Nalanda, is the oldest university in the world. The branches from there into the Gurukulas, and Gurukulas are they're designed uniquely. And the room that you went, you see on the top, they have Yavana Devaha, it means the people of Yavanadesh, the people of Greece. So you see Socrates studied there, Plato studied there. When Alexander the Great came into India, he camped in those areas and learned, because the world culture was way more connected before. So very, very ancient. The lineage that I'm part of, so my teacher, his teacher, we go back 5,000 years. 5,000 years of doing the same thing, and it's still going today.
Yeah. Let's follow your journey then away from India. Where did you go next?
So as I said, I used to travel around, but then when I am around Asia, but then after that, I knew I like Asian culture to study and learn, but I'm not from there. So I knew I would have to settle in the West. So I had a student that went to Indonesia, and he fixed a bone irregularity from a gentleman that owns the Hati Mahal hotel chains throughout Asia and the South Pacific. So when the gentleman got his disorder fixed, he was, "Oh, where did you learn this?" And then my student told him about me. So then he asked me if I could travel around Asia and South Pacific because he had his staff with health issues due to working in the office environment. So they asked me to travel around and consult and just help them to reduce office injuries and like that. So one of the places was Brisbane and Sydney. So I came in Sydney, and when I was in Sydney, I have a lot of my friends in the culture they generally try to get you to get married, and I was always resistant. When I came here, I had a good friend that I helped out a while back, and he was always trying to get me married. And he said, "Oh, I found a perfect lady for you, and this one you like." And after that, I was like, yeah, doesn't matter. But when I met her, me and her really clicked, and she was interested in the culture. So I invited her to come back to India. I had to finish teach her 6 months before I fully left that life. And so she came with me for 6 months in India. And then we came back to Sydney because she's from Sydney. And then we settled here. And ever since then, through her management, just like in my household, the women used to manage the finances and like that. Through her management, we're here where we are now. And I just get up and do my work. And she manages everything and keep me well. And she's here.
So love brought you to stay in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Yes. What are you doing there, though, Alex? What are you actually doing in Australia now?
Before, when I came to Australia, I was deciding what to do. So first, I work in hospitals and got my education and training in hospitals. And then when I finished my university study, that was the rehab study, I went to the Department of Disability and Home Aged Care. And that department was all the way up to 2015. And then now they changed the structure of how we deal with outpatients, community rehab and disability service. So now it's a thing they call the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And my wife, she pushed me and she said, "You have so much experience while you're working in an office for someone. It's best you form your own business." So since I think 2015, I have my own outpatient and community service business. And so it's a clinical business. I go to this the scheme, the government gives people equipment in their home, and then the therapists go to their home and people feel more better at home. They don't have to go to a hospital and all these things. And some of these people, it's difficult for them to go. So I go to homes like what I'll do today. I see stroke patient, brain injury, cognitive impairment, autism, and mainly autism patients today with cognitive impairment. So I go to their home and I just drive home to home and I take care of patients within their home. And that's what I get up in the morning and I never have a bad day. I get up. These people are appreciative when you come to their homes. Sometimes you're the only contact they have. And so I go into their home and I provide rehab services. Some is maintenance, some we're trying to get better to get back to their potential as much as they could. Some is palliative care. You know, I've been in this industry so long. Last year during COVID, I had 4 clients died. So, you know, you're with them from some kids I see when they're primary school, now they're adults, you know, so we're working long. You get, yeah.
Alex, I understand that you do have some children. Can you confirm that? You have some children?
Yes, I have a daughter. I'm 11 years old in next week, Tuesday, and I'm a little boy. He's 6 years old. They just went to school, so they can't come, but my wife is here at home. She's a psychologist here at home, so lucky for her, she works from home.
That's great. So do you speak Creole to the children? Are they exposed to Belizean culture? What about the food? I mean, have you been able to pass some of that on to the family?
I have a very skilled wife, and my aunt, my dad's younger sister, she gave us a Creole cookbook. So I still get I'm vegetarian, so I get rice and beans, but no chicken. But we got the salad. But the chicken, you know, you could replace with all these vegetarian options. So full Creole food. And Sunday we didn't have this Sunday, but last Sunday we had. And all the other Belize food she makes. Every time we come to Belize, she learns more. And so yeah, we get full Belize food here. And my wife, I could talk full Creole too. And she understands.
She understands.
Oh yeah. And my daughter, she's here. You want to meet her?
Oh yes, why not? Ask her to pop in.
Hey Kim. Hiya. If we can talk full Creole too, she knows it all, right? Kim? You know?
Hello, Kim. Hi.
I can't talk it though, but
you understand. You understand. Yeah.
So when we go to the malls and I'm angry with something, I curse out people in Creole and me and her have a good chuckle.
So clearly you have brought the family back to Belize a couple times, huh? Even though it's so far away. How often do you visit or get to visit?
We technically have family in not blood family in India. So what we do, we visit India and then we visit Belize. So last time we were there in 2019 and we were thinking to come every 2 years, but the COVID knocked off our schedule. So we got to wait for everything to open up again. But yeah, we come to Belize and I try to share stuff back home. That's my ultimate goal, is to give off all this knowledge so people don't have to go all the way to India and live sometimes it's a little bit tough, the environment and stuff. So I'm trying to bring it to the West and to Belize in particular. So I'm doing that every day through the social media with some Belizeans that are back home, just share the knowledge, you know. And and we do here in Australia as well. Kimmy also is we also practice the same culture as well, so we support each other.
Great. One final question for you, Alex. For young Belizeans who may wish to venture off and do something different with their lives in other parts of the world, but maybe hesitant. Not that we want them to leave Belize, but what advice would you have for them?
I say you follow your dreams, but if I would change anything now, I would have explained it a bit more clearer to my close family. So I had their support throughout, but they still didn't. I was a bit reclusive, you know. But with my mom, I made sure I explained things. But I said with all the people that are close to you, talk with them, people that, you know, supports you and are there for you. You gotta pick them carefully, and you speak with them and get their advice. And of course, ultimately, you'll have to make your own decisions and like that. But if I would change anything, I would have included my family and close friends more. And then you have that support, and it makes it easier. A lot of times I was in India, like especially when I was near the Himalaya, you know, you're far from normal places in India, and then you think about Belize, you know, and it's so far away. And the thing that saved me when you're in those down times was thinking in my mind about home, thinking about my family, hearing the conversations we used to have, you know. So what I would advise people and is back home is appreciate your country. Like right now, I could close my mind, and when I went back on my last few visits, I looked carefully at the environment, looked at the people, listened carefully, because when I was down and out in India, I hear those the voices, I hear the Creole, I see the nice environment, everything, and that saved me, you know. So what I say, appreciate your people, appreciate your culture, read as much as it as you could, because if you go out in the world, you have to be unique yourself, and of course the world will improve you, but at the same time you have to remember who you are. So for me, I'm a Belizean Australian. I speak Creole. I approach things uniquely, and everybody they always like, "Oh, where you're from?" And then when you say Belize, you know, we have the West Indies and the Caribbean and Belize. They have a good reputation in Asia because we're always nice people, thinky people, and mannerly people. You know, when we went to school, we had to sit nice. All those discipline things in schools in Belize when I was there. I don't know now. When I was there, all these things served me good. You know, like all the discipline, respect to elders and stuff. So know your culture, know yourself, love yourself, appreciate yourself, and then go in the world and add to it, not replace
Right,
it, not
right.
change it. Because
Alex,
Belize, we
this really has been a most interesting and delightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your life's journey with us, and for introducing your wife to us. Continue to stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you when next you are able to come home.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Haylock. You have a good day, and everybody in Belize, we come from a very unique country, and make sure we take care of ourselves. We're not rich or anything, but we're rich inside, you know, our history and culture. So nice. Now I appreciate it so much more after being around the world.
Yes, indeed. Viewers, we'll take our first ad break, and we'll be right back with another guest who is living off the beaten path as well. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Dialogue with the Diaspora. Diane Haylock here with you again. If you just tuned in, tonight we are talking to Belizeans who are living off the beaten path. Earlier, we spoke to Alexander Ogay in Australia, and now we're heading over to the east coast of Africa, to a mostly French and Arab-speaking country, the Republic of Djibouti, where we find our next guest, Mrs. Melva Johnson. Melva is a UNICEF country representative in Djibouti. She's been working in the UN system for 29 years. Melva holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the Universidad Iberoamericana in Mexico City and a master's degree in development studies from the Institute of Social Studies in the Netherlands. Welcome to the show, Melva.
Thank you, Diane. Happy to be here.
I am sure that a lot of people, first of all, are not familiar with Djibouti. Probably they haven't even heard the name. So tell us a little bit about Djibouti, where it is located, population, that sort of thing.
Okay. Thanks. Djibouti is actually on the Horn of Africa, or what is known on the Horn of Africa. We're on the coast, on the Red Sea, and bordered on the north by Eritrea, on the east by Ethiopia and Somalia. It's the only French-speaking country in the Horn of Africa, and a country that identifies more with the Arabic countries in the Middle East more so than it does per se with African culture.
What's the main economic activity there? Well,
Djibouti, which population is like around 1 million people right now. And Djibouti, as you may know, because of its strategic geopolitical location, hosts military bases of several countries. And because it's really desertic, very arid country, it depends a lot on overland trade with landlocked Ethiopia. So revenue mostly comes from the rent it collects from the US, Japan, China, all those countries that have military bases here, and from the overland trade with Ethiopia.
We can talk about Djibouti a little bit more later if time allows us. But for now, I want to bring you back to home base, your roots in Belize and your career, where it began.
I was born and bred in Belize City on New Road, or actually, to be exact, Kedelali on the north side of town. And you probably know where my mom is. That's where I was born and raised. Like you said, I studied, I went to St. Mary's Primary School. My dad was a public officer, so we kind of traveled around a bit. We lived in San Ignacio at one point, where I went to St. Andrew's Primary, but I finished my primary schooling at St. Mary's. And then I went to St. Hilda's for high school, and then to technical, before I went to Mexico to do my bachelor's in economics, and then my master's in the Netherlands a few years later. So yeah, Belize City, born and bred.
You know, and aside there, we share an alma mater at the Institute of Social Studies.
Yeah, I know that. I think several of us, huh?
Yes. So, Melva, you've left Belize how long now?
I left Belize in 2006, which is 15 years ago, going on 16 years next year.
And you've worked you've pretty much worked with UNICEF since leaving, I understand, right? And
yes,
you've worked also in various countries over that 15-year period. What are some of the countries you've lived in?
I worked with UNICEF as a consultant before I left. And when I left, I joined the team in Uganda. So I went from Belize to Uganda, where we lived for about 3.5 years. And then we went to Peru, where we lived for 5 years. Then we went to Thailand, where we lived in Bangkok for 5 years. And now we're back in Africa. We're in Djibouti. We've done 1.5 years in Djibouti now, with another 1.5 years to go.
Being in Djibouti or being with UNICEF?
Yes, a little of both. Because Djibouti is a 3-year duty station for the UN, for UNICEF, I should say. So I came in 2019. In principle, I should leave in 2022. But I have decided to retire. I am ready to go home. So I'm planning to leave in 2022, earlier than I should. So I should leave in principle in July, but I'm going to end it in February 2022. Yeah, I'm going home.
So we will welcome you home with a great party then, right?
hopefully. Yes.
Melva, how easy or difficult is it to adapt in each one of these countries? I mean, they are so very different, and if we follow what's going on in the world, I mean, we know some of the challenges that some of these countries face.
Yeah. To me, Diane, to be honest, the biggest challenge is packing up and having to move every 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, to move to a different country. I think we've gotten used to landing and finding our way, and UNICEF does help a lot with a lot of the administrative legal issues that we have to deal with, so I don't have to worry about the visa, about my driver's license. All of those things are organized for us. For me, the biggest challenge, I hate opening boxes and putting things away. And packing and unpacking is what I don't like. But other than that, language-wise, when we moved to Peru, that was okay because I'm fluent in Spanish. I studied my first degree in Mexico where I learned Spanish. Coming to Djibouti, though, was kind of a challenge because I was not fluent in French. I knew a little French, but now I can say that I am there. So, yeah, adapting to the language, the culture, I think a while, if you travel as much as we have, you get used to, integrating, learning different cultures, being respectful, and learning to live with it. My husband, he's very good. As soon as we land, in a couple of days, he knows where the market is, where the supermarket is, where we go for this, where we go for that. So very adaptable, and it's been great, really.
By the way, how is your son doing? I guess he's a man now, huh?
My son is a man. He turns 27 in a couple weeks. He decided to move back to Belize from Thailand. So he's actually been in Belize going on 2 years now.
Great. Let's look at Belizeans who might be country reps in UNICEF. Are there other Belizeans who are country reps in UNICEF?
I don't know of any other country rep for UNICEF in Belize. I do know Roy Boyne. He is retired. Hi, Roy. See you soon. He moved back to Belize, I think, last year. And he's held several high positions in UNICEF. Most recently, before he retired, in Gaziantep in Turkey. Okay. But he's back home now.
So, to your knowledge,
left me out here alone.
Right. So, to your knowledge, you have been the only Belizean who is a country rep for UNICEF, as far as you know.
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. What has this journey been like for you, Melva?
It's been incredible for several reasons. One of the things that we've always done is to not treat this like just a job. I move from country to country to work, but to actually live in the country where I work. So, for example, we try as much as possible to connect to the community, to get involved in local organizations, to have a network of friends outside of the UN, where the conversation is mostly about work, to get to know more about the people, about the local culture, to have that kind of connection where we truly live in the country where I work. For me, also one of the important things that has made this incredible is have my family with me, because many people who do this kind of work, they travel on their own. Family is settled somewhere, and they move around on their own and visit family. But for me, having my husband, having my son with me, has given me that a solid foundation you know, my mind is settled in that sense. I can work without thinking, oh, what is my son up to wherever he is, etc. But also, I have really met an incredible group of friends all over the world. I think on Facebook, I probably am over 1,000 friends. And I mean, real friends, people I connect with regularly in the different countries, people who will, you know, I can send a question to, or who will send me a care package. They know that there are some things in Peru that I love, like the charapita pepper from the Amazon. So my friends in Peru will send for me if I'm in Bangkok, or, you know, that kind of thing. And just also being able to, because you know the cause of UNICEF, we're there for children and for children's rights, to help governments and societies to really develop their knowledge and capacity to ensure that they can respond to the needs of children. And so that has brought me into contact with presidents, prime ministers, ministers, civil society organizations, parents, and so just to me, an incredible journey, an incredible lesson. I have learned a lot, and now I'm ready to take all of that home and to see how I can go back and contribute to my little country.
Yes, and we certainly need you here. Let's look a bit at Belize in the context of CARICOM, for instance. I mean, combined, Belize and the Caribbean countries wield limited economic and political power on the world stage. What do you think is needed for us to see more Caribbean people in senior posts in these international agencies?
I think that we're not as powerless or weak as you think. One country, one vote at the UN, right? And so that's why sometimes you see the SG and the Secretary General traveling around, because every single one of those little islands in the Caribbean, as small as they are, they're one vote when it comes to electing the Secretary General at the UN. I think that one of the things that people have to do is just apply. Take the plunge to get into the international organizations. I remember when I was at university in the Netherlands, we used to have what we call the kitchen cabinet. That's when we get together in the evenings and we just talk about issues. And I remember us having a conversation about the international organizations, in particular, the international financial organizations. And we're like, yeah, we'll never work for the World Bank or for the African Development Bank, blah, 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 or for the UN. And then at the end of the evening, maybe after the wine got to us, we said, look, if these organizations are ever going to change, we have to change them from the inside. So we need to get into these organizations. And I want to encourage Belizeans and people in the Caribbean to apply. I think that a lot has changed in the UN, at least since I joined. There's much more effort to try to source and recruit people from countries like ours, women, to improve diversity in the UN. So I think it's a matter of looking for the opportunities and applying. I think people have to brave. There is nothing. I got recruited. I think anyone can.
Melvin, what do you miss most from Belize when you're so far away?
Diane, I can't tell you. I joke with my friend Mappy when we say that the US and other countries, they have four seasons. We have many more. We have mango season, crab season, lobster season, conch season, etc. I miss food. I miss fruit. I want panades. I want garnaches. I want tamales. I want one bottle of Coke, but I want the Coke from Belize, the best Coke ever.
But Coke is Coke. Coke is Coke, isn't it?
Oh, no. Coke is not Coke, Diane. That is heretic. You can't say that. Coke is not Coke.
Well, not being a Coke drinker, you know, you can forgive me for that.
I miss food. I talk to my family every day. Hi, Mom. Sorry to say don't miss you because I talk to you every day, but I miss the food and the fruits, things that I can't get.
One final question. We like to get our guests to share words of advice to other Belizeans who are contemplating a career as an international civil servant with one of the international agencies. Anything you can share with people who might be tuned into our show?
I think it is very important to learn another language. Yeah, when I joined, I was already fluent in Spanish, and it's always an advantage to be able to speak another language. It's also important that you have at least a master's degree, I would advise. If you're looking to go international, you're competing with mostly people, even at the lowest level, who are people with master's degrees. I think also it is important to be able to write good CVs about yourself, to focus on what you have achieved, to think about the change that you want to make. So if you're joining the UN, what is the value that you're going to add or that you're going to bring to the organization or to the function, to the role that you're going to have in the UN? I think it's also to be bold in our statements to say what you have done. I think that sometimes we're too shy, and the question is always going to come to you. So what have you done? What was your role? What was your specific contribution? And so we have to be clear in writing our stories to say how we have contributed to the success that we have achieved where we were before. And like I said, again, the difference that we hope to make in the organization or UN agency that we're planning to join.
Melva, I thank you so much for joining us today. We are very proud of you and all that you have accomplished. Continue to be a fantastic ambassador for Belize, wherever your travels take you. And stay safe. We look forward to seeing you back home here in Belize in probably another year or so.
As we say in French, très bientôt. Very soon.
Viewers, we now need to take a short pause for our final ad break. Viewers, thank you for staying tuned to Dialogue with the Diaspora. I totally enjoyed our conversations tonight and hope you did too. Our off the beaten path discourse was refreshing, enlightening, and very encouraging. I'm hopeful that what we heard can inspire our young people to aspire for even more. We've seen that Belizeans have broken barriers, demolished walls, that they're thriving in all corners of the world, proudly brandishing their Belizean roots and identity. While most of us only consider North America when we think of foreign pockets for opportunities, we should appreciate that opportunities are also plentiful in the South and in the East. We're proud of what Alexander has been doing in Australia and all that Melva has been doing across the globe and now in Africa. They inspire us. Well, my friends, that is it for our show for tonight. Have no worries though. We will be back again next Thursday at 7 p.m. right here on CBTV and on Facebook on Colorblind's page. Do enjoy the remainder of your night. Continue to social distance. Wear your face mask. Hey, get that vaccination if you're eligible. And remain vigilant. Good night and take good care.